There are two types of essays that you could be asked to attempt in your exam. One of these is a thematic essay and the other is a turning point essay. Below is on one side a list of past thematic exam questions on the left and a list of past turning point essays on the other side. Regardless of the type of essay you're asked, the mark scheme is exactly the same. But there are certain things that you can do to give yourself a better chance of hitting the different points on a mark scheme depending on the question that lands in front of you. However, just to remind you, in whatever way you choose to attempt an answer, you must synthesize, which means compare the rulers, analyze, which is to show your understanding of how far things changed, stayed the same, or what similarities and differences. In other words, you could synthesize and compare Lenin to Stalin, but you can't get the marks unless you analyze as well and kind of develop a little bit your understanding and show your understanding of the change. It's no good to just say that they differed or that they were similar. In addition to those two key components, you also must show your specialist knowledge. You must cover the whole period, you must focus on the key words in the question, and perhaps something more overlooked is that you must time your exam so that you write two essays of roughly equal length. So now let's consider turning point essays and how we should answer them. As you can see, they all centre around a particular issue, and the Chief Examiner, in his presentation to teachers in autumn 2014, said that in stronger essays, students weigh up the named factor against other factors throughout the essay, but weaker students only do it in the conclusion. So in this essay, you must refer back to the October Revolution quite often. In this essay, things should be compared to Stalin's rise to power. And in this essay, you should refer back to the 1905 revolution often, and not just in the conclusion. That doesn't mean that you can't also compare between other factors. And if you listen to my podcast on an example to the 1905 revolution question, you'll see what I mean. The mark scheme is weighted 40 marks out of 60 for each question for A01B, which is synthesis and analysis. The Chief Examiner also said that synthesis is not simply saying that one event was similar to another. Students must explain in what ways an event was similar to another, or in the same respect if you're talking about differences. If you do that, that would be synthesis and analysis. The other 20 marks, so 1/3 of your marks, are from A01A, which is for knowledge and structure. The Chief Examiner says that you should be careful not to just throw lots of specialist factual information into your answer, but instead you must use the specialist factual knowledge at your disposal in order to support your synthesis and analysis. In other words, without explained comparisons, you cannot hope to get a good grade, and the specialist knowledge will be the sprinkling on top of your synthesis cake that might push you into a B or an A. The best way to ensure that you're synthesizing and analysing is by splitting the question into different themes. If you want to test yourself on things you could have selected to write about, then try the Selecting My Themes podcast, in which you will get a question. You should pause the video and then you should select your themes. Then unpause the video and see if your theme matches any of the themes I might have chosen. This is coming soon. In addition, you could also see my example podcast on the 1905 revolution for an idea of how themes are selected and how they can be tackled in an answer. Each paragraph should represent a different theme, and you should aim to have 4 paragraphs. However, do remember that if you're running out of time, it's better to have 3 great paragraphs than 4 rushed ones. Other things that the exam board stated in their autumn 2014 conference were that students must focus on the key words and phrases in a question and, as we've already discussed, this means evaluating the things discussed in your essay back to the key point. Establish a clear line of argument in the intro and maintain it throughout the essay. Use precise and relevant knowledge. Each paragraph should deal with a theme and should be linked back to the key words in the question. Each paragraph should end with an interim judgment about the theme and the issue. The conclusion should support the line of argument that was outlined at the beginning of the essay and should not introduce anything new. It should hammer home your argument, supported by your key reasoning and referring back to the key factor in the question. It should cover the whole period, including Khrushchev and the provisional government. It should show good awareness of the patterns of change, continuity, and similarity difference. As you will see from the Thematic Essay podcast, much of what I have told you here will also apply to the thematic essays, which is because, as I've already stated, the mark scheme for each question type is exactly the same. The two fundamentals of both question types is that you are comparing the rules and events, that you are also explaining your comparisons, and that you do this supported by relevant, precise knowledge. If you do these things, then you cannot fail, and you will do well. Good luck in your preparations.